if you find that you have too many things that are hiding the screen, you can always, you know, hit the small little line, and it will take me out of the picture too, I think. That way you don't have to look at me as I'm speaking. Okay, and fancy dancy. PowerPoint, look at that, huh?
Ooh.
Rotary 101. So I can't see you, which is probably good. That way I can ignore whether or not anybody's actually laughing at any of these things. So today we're going to talk about things that most of you know, but it's kind of like maybe there'll be little nuggets in here that are of interest to you. So this is the Spring Training Assembly webinar. We're on our second week of doing this. The first 8 courses were on Saturday, April 18th. And we had Janet Kelly and Ted Fagel and Naomi and Dr. Jim Ham for the first track. And then we had Marie Visser and Mark Harbison with International Service, Laura doing grant management, Benson club trainer, and the Eco Club out of Kaka'ako doing climate change and environment on the track 2 last time. This time we're going to be doing Rotary 101 with me in track 1 at 10 o'clock. I'll be followed by this inestimable Carrie Glass, and then homelessness with Mark Alexander from 11 to noon. On track 2, which is being run on a separate ID by Benson, we'll have Randy Hart with membership, club service at 10 o'clock with Connie, and then Charlene will be talking about the Peace Initiative. And then 2 weeks from today, May 16th, we'll have 8 other classes, but I'll leave that to your information for down the line. So welcome to track 1, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, Rotary 101 here with the Spring Training Assembly webinar. No pastries or coffee provided. So what's Rotary? I only have one slide. No, I'm just kidding. What's Rotary? Rotary is an international membership organization, right? We know that. It's a membership organization. What's interesting is whether we're members or whether our clubs are actually members of Rotary International. And the technical answer to that, of course, is that our clubs are the members of the organizations. But as Rotarians, we're the people portion of that. And of course, we share a passion for and commitment to enhancing communities and improving lives around the world. And that allows us, we're talking about making an impact locally. We're talking about connecting internationally. And we're talking about sowing the seeds in seeds of peace, health, fighting disease, literacy, prosperity, and individual potential. I can't see whether or not folks have their, if they're muted or not. So in some cases, you may need to mute yourself. Okay, appreciate it. All right. So
can I suggest that we all mute ourselves so that we don't have those problems with incidental conversations?
All right.
Possibilities are all around us. Everywhere we look, we see opportunity. We see potential in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action. In communities all around the world that we call home. Like transforming an old bus to feed hungry children, or providing life-saving equipment to those who need it most. From fighting disease to rebuilding schools, together we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved today at Rotary.org.
Yep. As I was mentioning earlier on, I have yet to discover, and it wasn't easily discovered by Google, how to just press in a PowerPoint and have it show up in your Zoom. So we end up sharing, and you see the man behind the curtain. So just ignore that person. So here's our outline for the webinar today. We're going to do a little bit of stats because this is a Rotary 101 and you got to have stats. We're going to talk about the action plan and vision. And for those of you that were at PETS and also at pre-PETS, we had a conversation about this, nice little presentation. I won't go through the entire presentation, but it is a big part of what Rotary International is involved in, and so we'll chat about that briefly. Of course, you got to know the organization and a little bit about our history because we are over 100 years old, and I know I look it, but the organization doesn't. We'll talk some about the programs, which is an important piece of this. We have a pop quiz, and of course, if I'm telling you about it, it's not really a pop quiz, so I'm just easy like that. And then maybe a surprise if we actually get there. So let's move into our stats. So we have our Rotary International. You see 1.2 million Rotarians, over 35,000 clubs, over 530, I think the last count was 532 districts that are ensconced in 34 zones. And then over nearly every country in the world, not every country, but pretty close. And then what Rotary Foundation has done since 1947 is 1.8 billion. And I'm not going to steal Carrie's thunder, so I won't be talking a lot about the foundation, but stay tuned for Carrie Glass next hour. District 5000 is the entire state of Hawaii. You can see it in that nice little circle there that's off the coast of California. I am a little surprised that we're that close. I thought we were a little further away, but you know, it's the way it goes. We got about 1,650 active members, 109 honorary members, and so honorary members, of course, are folks that have been selected by clubs to be a member, but they're not a, and the idea is they can be a Rotarian, but they're not on Rotary International's roles, right? It's a club selection of someone who is done well in the community, doing well in the community, and you want to honor them with a membership for a year. We've got 53 clubs, including our 2 E-clubs, our We Club and our E-club. And then we have 11 areas because Naomi couldn't, although Naomi probably could handle this by herself, it's nice to be able to point a finger at somebody and say, hey, I need some help with this. So we've got 2 governors, 2 assistant area governors on the Big Island, Hawaii Island. We have 2 on Maui. We have Kauai, and then we have 6 areas on Oahu. And then we, as a district, are part of the zone 2627, actually in 26, but the zone director is actually responsible for 26 and 27. And as we'll see, the director is actually part of the RI board of directors. All right, so there you go, stats, Rotary 101. Action plan and vision. So I've got 2 pages here. I'll show you. There's this piece, and then we have the core values on the back piece. You can learn more about this if you go to the rotary.org/action plan or strategic plan. Both of those will get you there. It's a, you see the vision statement. This came from some work that was done over the last decade or so all around the world. Right, global effort to try and figure out where are we at our century mark, and in the process of doing that, we developed what we in some cases validated what our core values were. Of course, we're an organization of great integrity, but we also wanted to see, you know, where is it that we're going, particularly as polio, you know, is getting eradicated, and we are so close. What's Rotary's next chapter, if you will? And so the vision statement, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. And then we're going to see if I can actually do this. Yep, I guess not. Yep, yes, I did. Okay, it's nice to have a surface. So you see the strategic priorities and objectives: increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance participant engagement, and increase our ability to adapt. And so you've got these objectives that are part of these priorities, and eradicate polio and leverage the legacy of doing so, of course, is a huge one for us as Rotarians and for Rotary International and the foundation. We are looking at our programs that we have out there, our areas of focus, and our avenues of our program areas. And so all those, which we'll talk about briefly, are part of this whole process, these strategic priorities and objectives. Part of what you see here is when we talk about Rotary and we talk about the things that we do, both in our community and internationally, what's necessary for this, of course, is that we continue to grow in our clubs and grow our clubs and our districts. So membership becomes a huge piece of this, because in the process, that's how we are making sure that we are out and about, right? Expanding our reach. Expanding our reach is both growing and diversifying our membership, as well as the number of clubs that we have. All righty. So when we take a look at the core values, of course, fellowship, integrity, diversity, service, and leadership. Personally, I like to call us a leadership organization. That's part of my bias, but I think that when we take a look at the people that come to Rotary, are interested in it, the ones that we go out and we ask might be interested in coming and joining the club, we know that at the bottom line for them is that they're leaders in whatever organization or industry or area that they're involved in. They are leaders, and so they bring that leadership, and we become an organization of leaders, which makes us all that much stronger around the world and in our communities. So I like that one, but of course, all of these meld together so that we know that these are our values. We know that these are the ways that we have to be so that we can accomplish the stuff that we're trying to accomplish in the action plan. Okay. The object of Rotary has been around for a long time, but it's stood the test of time. So we have right to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise, and in particular to encourage and foster the development of acquaintance, meaning fellowship, as an opportunity for service, high ethical standards in business and professions, i.e. integrity, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life, and then the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship, both in business and united in the ideal of service. So the object of Rotary, in all those things, it just connects with the action plan and vision that we have as well. So some of the things that we use, we talk about, we know the motto, service above self. We can talk about what the previous motto was. There was a previous motto prior to this, but it is also this is the one in 1950 that began to operate as the primary. In 1950, this became our motto. And then we had our four-way test, right? And I should cover this up because we should all know it. But of course, of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I imagine around the world, there's always a fifth test, and it just depends on where you're at. And we change it as we go. But in most cases, in District 5000, have fun turns out to be the fifth test. The areas of focus you see there, as well as hidden underneath them, the diagrams associated with them. So peace and conflict prevention / resolution, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, of course, taking care of moms and kids and their health, basic education and literacy, and then economic and community development. And these are all areas that, in particular in our international work, we're trying to connect to, right? And in fact, although there is not necessarily a priority here, we do know that peace has become a huge piece of our Rotary Peace Centers and the scholarships that we hand out to diplomats or diplomats to be that are part of the work that they're doing when they leave those peace centers. Avenues of service: club, vocational, community, international, and new generations. The new generations is relatively new in the sense that we were always focused on youth, always is in terms of taking care of them. But as a part of Rotary, really, as we'll see in the timeline, it became a focus in the 60s and the 70s. And then over the last couple of decades, that has just grown. We've seen where that's important internationally, right? Globally, districts around the world have seen that it's important to make sure that our youth are involved and want to be involved in a lot of the projects that we're involved in and doing the things that we're doing. And it's a great way for them to grow into these values and into these projects, because they are able then to connect with us as we're involved in those things as well, especially in our communities. But even the international with the youth exchange has been a huge benefit for kids as well as for us as Rotarians. So there we go with that piece of that. Let's move into our structure. We're rolling along pretty quickly here, but that's okay. As you see there on the in the nice little rectangle, we talk about the Rotarian at the top of the structure, then our club, our district, the zone, and Rotary International. So the club piece here, it can have its very own, and in most cases has its very own series of, there are so many pamphlets that Rotary have put out on club and all the individual pieces of the club. We could talk about this for a long time, but bottom line is that there is a constitution and bylaws that are associated for the club. Each club has its own, but they're based on what Rotary has as a part of its club's constitution and bylaws. The organization inside the club, you have the president, who's also the chair of the board, the club board. You have the president-elect. You have an immediate past president. In some cases, the immediate past president is not on the board, but in a lot of cases, that individual is. And then, of course, your secretary and your treasurer. And then you have the directors for club administration, foundation, membership, public relations, and service projects. And in some cases, the service committee chairs, depending on the focus of a particular club, may also serve on the board or with the director for service projects. So the president, of course, has, it's an annual job, a yearly job, unless you're lucky like those who get to do it 2 or 3 times in a row, just because they're great people. And but that's definitely not the idea. The idea is that we share the wealth when it comes to leadership opportunities and roll through the presidents over the course of a year. Presidents run typically a president will run the weekly meetings that we have and set up what the traditional meeting looks like. So in most cases, meetings are about an hour. Sometimes they're a little less. Most often they're not more than that, because we do meet fairly often as organizations. And then we will make sure that we take care of the things that you take care of them in a meeting, right? You take care of recognizing folks that should be recognized. You also do a little bit of the birthday and anniversary type of work, which is part of the recognition. And then we also try to, in a lot of meetings, have some type of program, whether it's a program involving the club itself, and oftentimes we'll bring speakers that will come from outside the club or members of the club to talk about things that are important or relevant to what the club is doing, or what the members are doing within the community, or even internationally. And so people have different reasons that they come. We try and also make sure that we allow for fellowship at these meetings. There are also pauhanas and fellowship opportunities that the clubs are largely responsible for managing within their particular geographic area. And these are generally set up in a geographic area. With the e-club, online clubs, those are not necessarily geographic unless you're the We Club and you're global. And so they are more thematic or topic oriented in a lot of cases. And that's a terrific way as we've developed the technology, communications technology. This has given more opportunities for Rotarians who are not necessarily physical neighbors to be able to be online neighbors and to learn about each other and their individual communities. And so that's a terrific thing also for clubs. In the director's piece, a club administration, of course, is largely that director's responsible for helping with the meetings and also greeters and the variety of things that occurs so that a meeting can be smooth and run smooth, you know, developing what the program is going to be, who the speakers are, all those kinds of things fall underneath the club administration. Foundation typically is involving the Rotary Foundation, although sometimes those individuals will also oversee or actually do the grant work that we'll talk about later on. We have our membership director, a hugely important role in the life of a club. If you're not bringing in new members, if you're not retaining members, if you're not checking into why folks might be leaving, then you can have trouble as a club continuing to survive and thrive. And so membership's a big deal there, particularly with the orientation piece of that. Public relations, of course, in this world of social media is a big deal. And so we see this as a very important. Our club's been very fortunate in South Hilo with a number of the folks that we have in our public relations area over the course of the last decade, especially folks that understand how it works and are technically savvy and are able to make things happen when it comes to getting our word out. And then we know that the other clubs in Hilo, for example, Hilo and Hilo Bay, as well as our two other East Hawaii clubs in Pahoa, Sunset, and Volcano, have also been very successful in making sure that the community understands what they're doing. And that's a big part of what we're doing with our public relations. It's, you know, it's funny, we talk about not bragging or boasting about the things that we do, but in this day and age, part of folks understanding and being willing to donate to the work that Rotary does, because we're a volunteer organization. It only happens if they know about the things that we are doing. And so public relations is hugely important in that regard. And then, of course, in a lot of clubs, the heart and soul has to do with the service projects and what you're doing. And that can be in any number of areas, right? It can be educational, it can be vision, checks for young kids, dictionaries going to schools, reading to kindergartens has been a part of this. We've seen that. We've done a lot of the carpentry and construction work that happens with the painting, Boys and Girls Clubs or YM or YWCAs, for example. These are all projects that the community, the local community is able to benefit because we have leaders in our Rotary clubs that understand that even though that may not be their day job, that is an important job for them to be involved in. And it's also a great opportunity for fellowship. So we really do appreciate all that work that gets done. And then, of course, if you're going to have those variety of types of service projects, a variety of kinds, then having the chairs that are responsible for them individually is really, really important. I don't talk about it here necessarily, but it is important. For example, in our club, and I know in other clubs, there's usually a large annual opportunity to raise funds. So it's a fundraiser. So ours is the Hilo Huli that we do annually. We've got a couple of Oktoberfest for Hilo Bay and used to be lobster up in Volcano, and now it's chicken. I think it's Cinco de Mayo normally, and Pahoa Sunset, and of course it's the Brewfest for Hilo Club. So all of these are annual. We love to support each other. I'm sure that the other clubs in the other areas on the island and throughout the districts around the world do the same thing. It's a lot of fun to engage and to help each other and to help within the clubs. And so these are terrific opportunities for fellowship, as well as raising funds that then get used for the community or for international projects. And so, like I said, I could go on and on. That's just the icing on the cake when it comes to talk about clubs. The clubs are the lifeblood of Rotary. We started as a club, right? One club started, and then it has grown into over 35,000, but the club is where things happen. We'll talk about the district on our next slide, but the zone, we've got one director who then serves on the Rotary International Board. A zone typically will have, I believe I mentioned before, in the neighborhood of 15 or so, depending on the zone, 15 to 20 districts within the zone. So you see that we're in the neighborhood of between 30 and 35 districts. I think it's close to 30 in zone 2627, known as the Big West zone. And then of course, Rotary International, you see the globe there. I know that that particular map projection doesn't show us, but you know, we're still there, and as a district. But Rotary International has a board of directors, has 19 individuals that are part of it, the 17 zones, and then the Rotary International president and the Rotary International president-elect. And then there's also the legislative side of things, which is a council of legislation. We won't go into that a lot, but it is important because it is an element that kind of gets lost in the wash a little bit. The council legislation is how we make changes to our Rotary Constitution and bylaws at the Rotary International level. And so it's a very important, they meet every 3 years. They used to meet during the convention, but they no longer do that. I'm trying to remember if that changed in the 90s or in the 70s. I can't remember right now, but it did change in the last few decades, where they now meet off schedule from the convention and the International Convention, and focus on any number of things that need to change. It's how we stay up to date with what's happening in the world as we add clubs, as we add new Rotarians. This is the opportunity to make sure that we're not a industrial age international organization, but an information age organization. The council legislation is how we do that. And then the secretariat that is in Evanston, just in Chicago, Evanston, Illinois, we have the General Secretary, Hugo, who is from the Rotary Club of Kiev, and his Deputy General Secretary is there in Evanston. And so they're the ones that make the organization run on a day-to-day schedule, making sure that internationally we're doing what we're needing to do. There is obviously Rotary Foundation. The General Secretary actually heads the Board of Trustees. And then there is
Doug,
yes.
Doug, your slides, I'm not sure that they're turning.
They're not turning. I'm still on this one side.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to get there.
Okay.
I'm going to get there. So this big slide is that, and we're almost done with this slide. I wanted to give you all the opportunity to try and figure out what all those dots were on the map. Okay, so we'll have a quiz later on what the dots were on the map. Okay, in any event, we're just about to turn this now. Okay, so District 5000. We know that District 5000, you see down there the website, rotaryd5000.org. And we're going to do this. Let's go back. See if we can make this a little bigger. There we are. So we see our district governor for 2020 to 2021. And then, of course, we have the variety of district executives that are listed there and the district directors. This was done back in late November. So there, I'm sure, are some updates to this. But at the moment, this is who's listed on here. So you see the directors, 9 of them, running through the district nominating committee, which is our dear Laura there. I say dear Laura because she was my district governor when I was a club president. And then we have the area governors, all 11 of us. And I know Mariko didn't want her picture in there because she just outshines us all. And so she didn't want to do that to us. So at some point, I'm sure her picture will be included in that as well. All right, so that information is available both at My Rotary, which is where I picked that up from, and Rotary D5000, as well as off of Club Runner. I won't go into Club Runner a lot, but it's a very important application for us being able to keep up with what's happening in our clubs. It also runs many of our websites, our club websites, as well as the district website has a connection to it as well. So if you're not sure about Club Runner, if you're hearing about it for the first time, make sure that you talk to either your secretary or your president about Club Runner and how you can see what's happening on there as well. Alrighty. So District 5000, we talked about it. We showed where the district was and how it was part of Zone 2627 earlier. And so it is the state, and this is the crew that is involved in making sure that the district is supporting the clubs. One thing I would say about the district governor is the one member of Rotary International in the district, right? So we have all these district executives and all the area governors and of course all the club presidents. And we're all part of the district, but the district governor is actually a part of Rotary International. So congratulations, Naomi, on that great accomplishment. And although it said that you're not the Inspector General for Rotary International, we do know that you're there to guide us along the right path. All right, so history of Rotary, that was next on the old website, on the outline of things. I am paying attention to our time, so we will run through this. You see 1905, four folks in Chicago, four businessmen in Chicago got together. And the reason that we call it Rotary, of course, is that they rotated amongst their business places in holding their meeting. And it's as simple as that. And then when you take a look at the circle areas that I have, you see that internationally we formed in Ireland, Great Britain, and Canada. The clubs in Great Britain and Ireland actually do have a different name and are affiliated though with Rotary International. But that's when it became an international club. A little known fact is that Paul Harris, of course, one of the founders and maybe the primary founder, if you will, of Rotary International, of Rotary back in 1905, was not the first club president, but he was the first Rotary International president. So you did learn something today if you didn't already know that. 1917, President Arch Klump proposed as establishing an endowment fund, and that became the lead-in to the Rotary Foundation later on. 1967-68, we see the first Rotaract Club, and we'll talk about what a Rotaract Club is, but it is for our young adults, generally at the college age, but doesn't have to be college, but that generally is where we see it. We see 1984-85 where we've launched Polio Plus program, and we began the raising of funds to immunize all children of the world. Huge, huge project. And then 2005, we celebrated the Rotary Centennial, and hundreds of community projects were launched in the process of doing that. And we could talk about each of those projects. They've all been amazing projects, and in many cases continue to be things that area organizations, area clubs continue to get together to support. And then we see that the Gates Foundation was a huge help, along with other organizations, other philanthropic organizations, so that we have spent, if it's not $1 billion, it's very close to $1 billion in eradicating polio around the world. A huge, huge issue. So when we talk about the history of Rotary, know that we're a little over a century old, and we have every intention of making that second century, and the history of what that'll look like should be just amazing, as the previous century has been. So Rotary programs. All right, so we've got the Rotary Foundation, Polio Plus, the Peace Centers Fellowship, and the grants, and they're in that kind of box there together because by and large, the foundation is responsible for the funding associated with that. And so I won't go into a great deal. I did talk about Polio Plus a little bit, but we are going to have a little video on that. So that is the legacy project for Rotary International with the help of the Rotary Foundation. And I'll let Carrie Glass talk about that down the road. But that is the blood by which, that's how we get things done, is through the funds that flow through the Rotary Foundation. Our little triangle there in the middle is associated with a lot of our youth connections. So Interact, of course, is our high school, middle school, high school clubs. Rotaract is usually our college age clubs. And if you had the opportunity to be involved in them, you know that they are terrific young people, it really gives them an opportunity to be leaders. And if you bring them into your club activities, they do just tremendous work, has been the experience that we've had here in East Hawaii. Of course, we've got the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards held usually annually in various parts around the state for us, and of course around the globe. Different districts handle it in different ways. But those are great 2 to 3 day periods of time where we bring usually high school students together for the opportunity to learn about being leaders, learn about being followers, learn about what it is to be a leader in your community. It really opens their eyes up, and you see how great the kids are, and it does your heart good to see that. And then the clubs themselves, with all the folks that make that stuff happen, it's really a terrific experience. And then we have our fellowships and our Rotary Action Groups that I would encourage you to take a look at. Rotary Action Groups, just Google that or go on to rotary.org and find out what's out there. For me, you'll see cycling's a big deal. I enjoy that. I enjoy that we have a Rotary Action Group in cycling, and they raise a lot of money to support both disaster relief as well as other projects, particularly Polio Plus. And then of course the Rotary Community Corps, that's actually folks that help us that are not Rotarians. And so having, it's kind of like the auxiliary, right? Yeah, you always need more folks when you're doing these projects, and the Rotary Community Corps is that set of folks that help us with that. And then over there in the Oval, Rotary Youth Exchange, Friendship Exchange, and New Generation Service Exchange. These are all opportunities for fellowship, all opportunities to learn about our world, to expand our vision and our horizons when it comes to learning about. That's why this is such a great organization, why internationally being a Rotary International really carries a lot of weight. I know that for many people, it's the international piece that you really love, and that's when you talk about what's your Rotary story, typically that's where that comes from. Okay, so let's see if I can make this happen very quickly. And where's my, there it is. Alrighty.
Vision to improve the health of every single child. We've eliminated polio in some of the most difficult places, overcoming obstacles and navigating complex issues. Our successes prove that polio will be eradicated, and while ending a global disease is not easy, as Rotary, we don't give up. We'll continue our fight until each child is protected. This isn't possible without you. So stay involved, keep pushing forward, engage your clubs and communities, start a social media conversation, and increase visibility on the importance of this global effort. Hold events and fundraisers on World Polio Day and throughout the year. Advocate to governments about the importance of supporting polio eradication. Make a contribution and invest in one of the largest health initiatives ever. Be a character in our story. Be the solution to our challenge. It's because of each and every one of you that we will improve our future by making polio a disease of the past. Eradication is possible, so let's keep our promise.
Yeah, that always gets me. Sorry. I just think that that whole project obviously is, it's probably, you just call it a project is such an understatement. It's epic, and I'm really, really proud of everybody that's been involved in doing that. And so there you go. All right, so we are now at our Rotary quiz piece, also known as I thought I was going to get out of here without having to talk. And that's not me, because I've been doing most of the talking. So Naomi, if I could I'm in the PowerPoint, so I'm unable to see folks. Hopefully you're able to see folks. Can you help me with identifying folks that perhaps can answer these questions as we roll down the questions?
Okay, I unmuted all. So do you want
right.
somebody to step up and answer? Or do you want me to
Yeah,
call?
so what are the 2 youth organizations that Rotary clubs sponsor? Anybody got an answer for that?
Rotaract and Interact.
All right, I don't have a prize for you, but that's awesome. How do members gather to address club programs and activities? This is actually something I didn't say, so this will be somebody who actually knows this. How do we do that?
Zoom meetings.
Ah, very funny.
Club speakers.
Club assemblies?
Yes, look at that, with confidence. Well done, well done. I'm not sure who that was, but whoever it is, I don't need you to be in my meetings because you'll outshine everybody. Okay, how often and where do Rotarians gather in Rotary's international meetings? So how often do we have an international meeting?
Once a year.
Once a year, annually, that's right, except for 2020. Except we are gonna have one, aren't we? It's just gonna be virtual. And then where do we gather?
Next year, Taipei.
Nice, very nice. That's right. We gather internationally. We go to various places around the world. Wherever there are Rotarians is where we end up going, right? That's a terrific thing. All right. So what Rotary Foundation program focuses on Rotary's top priority? Hint, we just saw a video.
Polio.
Polio.
All right, Polio Plus. Very good, very good. All right, that's kind of like when you say emotion and for a German and then you get 14,000 seconds. Yeah, that's kind of what that was like. So how is Rotary International organized at the headquarters level? We kind of talked about this during that, and I went into great detail ad nauseum on this. Does anybody have a real quick way of talking about that?
Well, the president and then the vice president and then the board of trustees, right? Or is that
No,
for the
yeah, that's for the foundation. That's for the foundation.
Directors.
Right. So we got the board of directors, which are the directors from the zones, and then we have the Rotary International president and the Rotary International president-elect that compose the 19 members of the board of directors, as well as the general secretary that serves as a ex officio, I think, without vote. At the headquarters level. And of course, you got the secretariat that makes things happen. That, oh, by the way, club presidents and members they're more than happy to talk to them, right? That's not, it's not like calling the GM headquarters if you're a car dealer somewhere, right? They want to talk to you. All right, so what is the name of Rotary's youth leadership training? Where is it held in District 5000? Ryla, very good. And where do we hold it?
Well, on the Big Island, it's a KMC.
And that was a trick question because we hold it in lots of different places, don't we?
Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
That's right. Yep. So we've been doing it at Kilauea Military Camp for a number of years here on Hawaii Island, but I know that on Maui and Oahu, they have it in a number of different places. So there you go. We talked about Rotarian action groups, so I won't necessarily ask you about that. But what is the title of the senior official in the district? Naomi, you're not allowed to answer this.
district governor?
Yeah, very good. That's right. So we've got a Rotary International president, we have a zone director, and we have district governor, and then we come back around and we got club presidents. So there you go. What is the most important component in the Rotary organization?
Members.
Club.
The members. Service.
The most important component, according to Rotary Basics, is the club. Yeah. Now, I can't argue with the members. I think that's really important as well. But you know, I'm the teacher, and I got to go with the teachers. You know, the teacher's guide on this one. So, club. Whoever said club, you win. You get 100%. Whoever said members, you lose. Okay. Obviously, I'm kidding. All righty. So that's the quiz. Congratulations. You all got 100%, and therefore you get a C. All righty. Okay. I do want to tell you something before we move. I'd like to, if it's okay with you, show you something that occurred today. So you may or may not have known, many of you probably did know that Rotary International ran a telethon, an hour long, and so in Rotary time, that's actually an hour and a half, telethon from 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, or Central Daylight Time, I guess, today. And so I didn't wake up at 5 o'clock, but I did wake up at 6 o'clock, and they were still going on. And so there's a piece of at the end of it that was very, very cool. And some of you may have seen it, but for those of you who didn't, I wanted to be able to show you. So let's go there.
Bit of an update. We had a nice big bump since the last time I was with you, and we have jumped up to $356,033. That is a jump of $136,000 since the last bump. So let's see where we get to before the end of the broadcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to remind you, if you're not donating now because you're just simply enjoying the program, you can do so afterward. And we have a big finish, a big finale coming up with a song and a Rotarian artist, Nicole Lemus from Hawaii. And that's going to be wrapping up our show in just a few moments. So please stay tuned, please donate, and thank you so much for being people of action.
Changing fast, I cannot find my way now. What can I say now about our world? Can I believe that we can find a way? Can I believe? Can I believe? I can't believe that there's a new ending, depending on you and me. We can make new choices to raise our voices. I can believe, I can believe.
We'll just have to go to that.
I can believe.
Wow.
So I just want to thank you all for being a part of today's presentation on Rotary 101. And as you can see, we've got our virtual convention coming up 20 to 26 June. And you can learn more at rotary.org or riconvention.org as well. So save those dates. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm prepared to take any questions at this time, or y'all can say we need a break because there's no way I can follow that.
Please try.
Any questions?
Hi, Doug. If nobody's asking, I'm always curious about why we are considered zone 26/27. Are we in 26 or are we in 27?
We're in 27, but the zones get put together as two zones. I only learned that today or yesterday as I was putting the finishing touches on this. I had the same question, Alan, and it turns out that you have one director, so they fit those things together for the director, but we are actually in zone 27. Is that right, Naomi?
26.
Like I said, zone 26.
What? Zone 26 or 27?
26.
So Naomi, why don't they just combine it so that we have just one zone number?
They could, but then, so we were 25, 26 before, yeah, and so every time there's a redivision because the districts get smaller or bigger, they kind of switch it out. So keeping us together is all of the West Coast and some of Idaho, Colorado, Arizona. So I guess when we do pets, we have some people from both both zones.
You know, an interesting piece when you take a look at I know that you all are going to go and once you get this available to, once the presentation's available to you, immediately go back and take a look at the map there of the zones. But it turns out that there is a part of Canada that is in our zone 27, right, the northern portion. And there's a part of Washington State that is in one of the Canada zones.
Yeah, really, it makes you wonder why we have zones.
Well, as far as I can tell, it is a span of control issue. The idea that you would have a Rotary International president that would be talking to over 500 district governors would be difficult. So 19 or 20 members of the board, and meaning that each of those directors have responsibility for, 25 to 30 or so. That's a little bit better span of control, perhaps.
Yeah.
So where was I wrong? Anybody get me on something? I'm sure I was wrong somewhere.
Zone 27.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
That's the only mistake. Everything else was perfect. Thank you, Doug. Really good presentation.
Really good.
Yeah, I think you did covered a lot of the basics, which is really good. The only confusing part is when I first got involved with New Generations, it was called New Generations, and then they said it was Youth Services, and now they're calling it New Generations. So I guess the proper thing is New Generations, right?
Right, and I think that when you look at it, there's an age piece associated with that. So New Generations actually rolls up into age 30, for example. So youth has, when we talk about youth exchange, we're typically talking about high school, age students. The New Generation Exchange and New Generation Fellowship stuff, those are folks that are college or out of college, new into their career type of period.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
All right, well, I just want to say thanks to everybody for being on, for wanting to learn about Rotary. It's a big topic, and I apologize for a single slide for 20 minutes, but what can I say? I hopefully made it up for, with 3 different videos, including one from a past president of Honolulu Sunset. So I would say that we're at 9:58, at least on Adam's time clock. So maybe we get 2-minute break before we start with the, top-notch Carrie Glass doing Rotary Foundation. What do you think, Naomi?
Sure. And if you have any other questions, you can email Doug directly. But hey, Doug, you're being asked if you could be on the Speakers Bureau and make the rounds with the clubs.
There you go. That's a great idea.
But the PowerPoint will be on the district website under the President and Officer Resource tab in Quick Links. But how about a hand for Doug? Good job.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is the fun part where now we're going to move